It's time now for The Drive on ESPN Blacksburg, AM 1430, 810, FM 94.1, and live on the web at espnblacksburg.com.
It's The Drive on ESPN Blacksburg, and a good evening to all of you. My name is Paul Van Wagoner. That guy right there is Brian. He's taking your calls at 961-1430, 961-1430. The third wheel of today's show is KG, who is more interested in watching Maury, I think, than anything sports.
All right.
Are you? Do you have Maury on, or are you going to stick with what do you got going on there?
I got men's volleyball.
Men's volleyball happening right now. I don't know if you guys know this or not. Jason Stamm is actually an accomplished men's volleyball player. Stamm, how are you, man?
I don't know about that, Paul, but good to talk to you, Aaron.
You too. Well, you're tall enough, right? Like, I mean, you know.
I can be like a libero, I guess. Those guys are always like 5'8", 5'7". Those are short guys. I'll be thinking in the pack.
Well played, breaking out the libero. I like it.
Hey, I've covered some volleyball in my day, Paul.
I'm impressed. You guys posted, by the way, Stam is with Scouts.com and, of course, the VT Zone. You guys posted on the VT Zone the other day talking about the strengths and weaknesses of the Hokies offensive line. As you look at this from a recruiting standpoint, did they miss on some guys at some point that maybe would have made this group stronger, or is this a pretty good group, all things considered?
You know, for years, Paul, I mean, this goes back way before I got to Blacksburg. You know, I've been here for 5 years now, and this goes back way before then. This is my 5th season that I'll be covering them. And, you know, it's just always been probably the biggest Achilles heel on the team has been the offensive line. It's almost like you talk about all the running backs that they've had here produced through the years, the David Wilsons and Ryan Williams and Kevin Jones. And you talk to anybody who's watched that team through the last 15, 20 years, and it's almost like they had the success they did in spite of the offensive line. So, you know, I think this group they've got now, it's a very veteran group. You know, you've got 4 starters returning. They lost Wade Hanson, but pretty much everybody else is coming back, and they've got, you know, a couple of good, really battles there at tackle. They actually have some depth at tackle now,
right?
With Josh Nijman and Dimitri Moore looking like they're probably not even going to start right now. So that bodes really, really well for the you know, for this season especially. I don't know about for future seasons. They've got a lot of work to do to, you know, continue that depth. What they've built up right now is probably the most impressive group to start a season they've had. And gosh, I don't even know when they've had a group this good at this point.
So then, talk about the recruits that they either have committed that are coming in, or the guys that they're targeting. And I know that these are a lot of names that you and I have talked about in the past, but are there specific players, like, you know, based on the fact that maybe they need tackles or maybe they need guards, that they're really targeting hard right now on the offensive line?
Yeah, the guy that they need, they would really, I think, ease a lot of minds on this offensive line is Mekhi Becton, Highland Springs over in Richmond. They get that guy, I think you feel very, very good going forward where this offensive line stands. They've got a couple on board already. Aiden Brown, I know Lacita Smith, again, was recruited as a tight end, but based on how, you know, where he's played, the type of offense he's played in, his, you know, physical stature, I'll be absolutely shocked if he doesn't end up at offensive line, on the offensive line at some point sliding over. But, yeah, the rest of the way, you know, they're still in it for guys like Marcus Minor and, you know, a few other prospects, but the top guy that would, I think, ease so many minds right now is Mekhi Becton. And I think they're in good shape with him. You know, it's still, I think they're still hurting because they were so late to the party and offering him. And, you know, one of these days we'll ask probably Vance Weiss what he was thinking and why he didn't offer sooner. But the point is, they've made up a lot of ground. He did visit last month for the Blacksburg Bash, and, you know, they finally got back on campus with him, and they've stayed in very good contact with him since. I still think it's probably a 2-team race pretty much between Virginia Tech and UVA. I'll be surprised if he doesn't stay in state. You know, there's some other ones I think he's looking at, but right now, looking like he probably stays in state. But that's a guy that you talk about bolstering that offensive line. Virginia Tech has to get him. They really do. he's at a school with a lot of former Hokies and a lot of Hokies around him, so they really need to keep that one in state and keep him home.
So let me ask you this. From a recruiting standpoint, what is a good number every year for offensive linemen? Because you need the depth, but you can obviously get too many at some point, and then obviously on the other side you can get too thin at some point. You don't need 5 every year, but what's a good number? Are we talking 3? Is that a safe bet?
I think this coming class, it's again, if you include Lacita Smith, I think it would probably be like 4. I think they'd like to take at least another offensive lineman or 2.
Sure.
You're not always going to take 5, but I think 4 is probably the minimum each year.
Oh, wow.
And again, everything shakes out depending on, guys transferring,
sure.
and there's a lot of other factors that go into it. But generally, I think you're looking at about 4. And sometimes you need to bring in more than that. But to keep that depth, to keep everything going, you typically need about 4 in a class.
Now, how much does depth play into the recruit's mindset? And I guess, once again, I'm going to ask you to delve into the mind of 17-year-old kids. But when you look at a team and you see, well, there's 3 – if I play guard, there's 3 guards ahead of me. When am I going to get to see the field? Is that a factor when players are looking at schools, or does it boil down more to that relationship with the coaching staff?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I would say probably 75-25 guys are very much affected by the depth chart. There's that small percentage that says, hey, I feel good enough and confident enough I can take on anybody I go against. Mm-hmm. This is where I want to go. I'm happy to compete against whoever. There's always a group that's going to say that. But
right.
Generally, I feel like these guys are they're very much in tune with the depth chart and what's in front of them. As far as the offensive line goes, I don't know is that as big of a factor there, because offensive line is probably, of every position on the field, that's the position that it's a really, really rarity for guys to play as a true freshman. There's just so much to take on as far as blocking schemes, physicality. It's a huge difference between high school and college. And these guys, even in practice, realize, hey, these guys are faster, they're smarter, they're quicker. They have obviously more moves to their arsenal than guys in high school that are just bull rushing or just using some of the basic moves, I guess, as a defensive lineman. So it's a big adjustment. There's guys that have done it. Technically, Jonathan McLaughlin did it at Virginia Tech. Mm-hmm. But, you got to also remember, too, he had a year of prep school at Fork Union, so he was technically a true freshman, but really had an extra season under his belt.
Right.
So it can happen, but almost every time these guys are going to redshirt right off the bat. And even this year, I can't see any of the guys that signed with Virginia Tech earlier this year factoring in this year. I think they're all set to redshirt.
Now, if you do come across one of those, rare 5-star offensive linemen, is that the kind of player that you're talking about that can come in right away and possibly compete for a starting job? Or, you get down around 3 stars, maybe even the low 4s, you're looking at a redshirt year, right?
Yeah, even Becton's a great example. I'm a huge Mekhi Becton fan. I think that kid is if he keeps going on the trajectory he's going now, I think without question he's going to be playing in the NFL here and give him 4 or 5 years. So, but at the same time, I think he's still pretty raw. I want to see how he develops this season. But size-wise, strength-wise, physical-wise, he's there. This is a kid that I've been probably more than any other guy out there have been lobbying to get him higher than 3 stars. I think I don't know if he's 5 stars, but I think he's a top 300 kid in the country without question from all the guys I've seen. And so that's why, partly why I think Virginia Tech really, really desperately needs this guy. There's other factors. He's in-state. They need offensive linemen. They're going to lose some guys, obviously, after this coming season. They need to replenish the depth chart. Now, you've got obviously some guys there at tackle, like we mentioned, that are going to be there again next year. But getting a guy like Mekhi Becton, that's a guy, that's the type of offensive lineman you need. That's the one you need size-wise to really keep this offense going and really, even recruiting-wise, I think from a recruiting standpoint would be great for guys to see that a kid like that would choose Virginia Tech, but also just that's just who you need. That's the type of offensive lineman you go after in recruits.
I know you have had a chance to attend some press conferences. You've attended a little bit of the practices that they've opened up to the media and things of that nature. Recently, Coach Fuente mentioned the fact that freshman quarterback Josh Jackson, who I was really impressed with at the spring game, has kind of upped his stock, if you will, and has turned what we all presumed as a 2-horse race for the starting quarterback job now into a 3-horse race. Does this muddy the waters a little bit more for Virginia Tech for this quarterback class, or I guess this year's starting quarterback?
I don't think so. I'll be absolutely shocked if it's not Gerard Evans. I still think he's been the guy from the moment that he committed to Virginia Tech back in December. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Josh Jackson has been very impressive, to say the least. Again, he's another guy I think will be almost a guaranteed red shirt. But I think really the biggest thing with this is he's just trying to light a fire into these guys under Evans and Motley that, hey, you guys have to keep doing this every day. This isn't like a come out, look good for an hour and a half in practice and then you're done. No, this is like a continuous, you have to prove you're the guy. And so I think it hasn't been as 100% clear cut as we all thought it was going to be. But I still think Evans is going to be the guy. But, he wants to push both of them. You don't want to name a starter at this point in camp, or you want to almost put it right up to the very last second. That's kind of really just a mental thing, I guess, with those guys, just to keep them going and to make them realize again, hey, you've got a lot of work to do. This thing isn't a done deal just yet.
So let me ask you this, and I'm asking for your expert opinion here. What is that last second? Are we talking the week before Liberty? Are we talking right before the Liberty game? Are we talking he waits until maybe play that Liberty game, give them both some looks, and then see what happens going into Tennessee?
I think that's exactly, at least that's what I think is going to happen.
Really?
Fuente could obviously make a decision right before Liberty, but yeah, I think it's going to be Bristol week before he fully names who the starter is. That Liberty, no disrespect to Liberty at all. It's a very good FCS team, but that's pretty much going to be an audition for both of those guys. I think that they each get one more shot to show that, hey, I could be the starter. And, yeah, I think going into that Bristol game, that week is when we're finally going to know who the starter is going to be.
Wow. Now, are they taking a big chance by not naming a starter before that, by not having that? I always use the term synergy with the wide receivers. I mean, are they taking a flyer by if they did go that route, by going that route?
I don't think so too much. I mean, honestly, you can make an argument for Notre Dame or North Carolina, but Tennessee is arguably the biggest opponent on the schedule, and obviously getting them where they do, they have the element of surprise. They want to try to keep at least some element of surprise, so I think that's part of it. But also, again, he just wants to push these guys and keep that competition going as long as possible. And I think, Liberty, nobody's going to really, be set on one for Liberty. I mean, again, that's kind of like a glorified scrimmage. At least it's one that Virginia Tech should win handily. So that's going to be the best. It's really the only game situation they're going to get past, in intra-squad scrimmages that they're doing right now. So, I don't think so. Both Evans and Motley have been, groomed through the same system. They both know the same plays, and it's not like anything's different. I mean, I don't think there's a huge at least the style of both those guys, I think, fit with this offense. I think Evans just does it better. So I don't think they're going to really mess anything up by doing that. I think it's more keeping that element of surprise with Tennessee and obviously keeping that competition going between those two quarterbacks.
Are you seeing anything right now or hearing anything right now? Because, again, I know that media has had limited access to practices. Anybody that's really kind of jumping out, maybe competing above where we thought they might be at this point in the season?
Yeah, it's been like Fort Knox in there, and I've had some sources within the program, and some people I've asked kind of what's going on and how everybody's looked, because as media we've only got to see the very first day, and that was basically a glorified warm up. So, from what I've been told, it sounds like Parker Osterloh is still really. It's hard to not see him getting that starting job at tackle, and even back in the spring, I thought it was a sure thing that either Nijman or really Dimitri Moore being the JUCO guy coming in we're going to get that spot. And it's looking like Osceola's going to hang on to it, and that's kind of surprising. Just, again, based on where he was early in the spring. He's put in a ton of work. Josh Jackson, again, has gotten a lot of the attention, being a quarterback and being that position hasn't been named yet. As far as the defensive side, I keep hearing Tremaine Edmonds looks just really, really impressive. And that's a kid I think is going to have a huge season this season. And, he's one that physically looks very good and has looked good from even when I saw him back in high school. I mean, I think he's really going to, by the time he's done at Virginia Tech, will have had a very, very successful career.
You know what I wish I had was an app that gave me instant access to breaking news that's related to the Hokies. Wouldn't that be great?
Well, Paul, it's funny you ask, man. We have a free app on Scout Network. It's really cool. You can actually swipe and go instantly to, you can list, I don't think there's a limit on how many favorite teams you can select. You've got access to every network, every site within the Scout Network, including MLB, NFL, NBA, and NCAA. So you've got it all covered all in one app. You get all kinds of instant updates anytime something happens. That's kind of the way everything is going. We don't really send out text alerts anymore, all through the app. So, if you want to get caught up on everything and know when it happens, exactly when it happens, download that free app.
No text alerts?
Free in the App Store.
No text alerts? Is this compatible with MySpace?
I don't think so. You have to ask Justin Timberlake if it is or not. I'm sure he's still using it, but the rest of us have kind of moved on past MySpace.
Jason Stamm is with Scouts.com and the VT Zone. A serious. I see that you have it for the Apple. Is it available on Android?
It's not currently available on Android, but I know that's coming later this fall.
I expect you to work on that and let me know when that's ready so I can get this. Jason Stamm, man, as always, brother, I appreciate your time. Lots of great information. I look forward to chatting with you next week.
I'll look forward to it every week, Paul.
All right, take care. Thanks, Stamm. I'll talk to you soon.